you can talk to and it talks back. It's a program called Siri. So let's try this. I'm just going to hold it up to the microphone here and push a button. Siri, where do you come from?
I, Siri, was designed by Apple in California.
Where were you manufactured?
I'm not allowed to say.
Can you guess what this is about? So it's about a story called Mr. Daisy Goes to the Apple Factory. There's a guy named Mike Daisy, and he does monologues in New York City. He actually makes his living that way. He's done a series of performances on and off Broadway and around the world. He's considered a master storyteller, so they say. I guess it always sounds good when somebody calls you that. When we think of Apple, we think of a socially responsible corporation. They have a nice, clean package. It's tight, it's streamlined, it looks good, and they pay attention to detail. There's a company called Foxconn that makes a lot of motherboards and different computer parts. They're based out of China, and they're in a city called Shenzhen, which was rice fields just a few years ago, or a decade ago. Apple relies on Foxconn, just as Dell, Nokia, Panasonic, HP, and Lenovo, to produce 1/3 of all of their goods. Mike Daisy is infatuated with Apple products. He says that he takes his computer apart and puts it back together just for fun. He breaks his MacBook Pro down into 38 components, so this guy knows what's going on with Apple products. He was reading a tech blog when somebody posted some pictures that were left on an iPhone from testing in the factory. Every iPhone is tested by taking 4 pictures to make sure it functions properly. Then the pictures are deleted and it's packaged. Well, they forgot to delete these 4 pictures, and they were posted on the site. He saw them, and he locked in on it, and he couldn't get them out of his mind. He was going back to the site and looking at them, and he decided that he was going to go to China to find out what these factories and what these people were like. He had never considered it before. On arrival, Shenzhen's a special economic zone, so there's incentives for companies to go there and do business there. The air was so thick that he had trouble breathing for the first few days. As we know, there's a lot of pollution there, so that's not too much of a shock. He told some journalists about his plan, that he wanted to go to the factory and talk to the people as they came out. And it made them nervous because that isn't necessarily a part of their culture to be that forward. But he got a translator and he went there. This Foxconn plant houses 430,000 workers in one facility. It's massive. It redefines what we think of as large. The first group of workers he comes across are actually underage, and that's one thing that he picks up on that goes against Apple's ethos of social responsibility. He found out that what what Foxconn will do is move the younger workers and switch in older workers to the lines when they know an inspection is coming, because these corporations do inspections, so they're working around that. They know the inspection is coming, so they negate the threat of being found out. It doesn't always work that way, and I'll get to that in a little bit. There was 22 suicides last year in the Foxconn plant. Now that's not a lot for 430,000 workers, but it's a lot to happen in a workplace. There's a lot of preventable overuse injuries. People will work all day long doing the same repetitive motion, and normally here in America, theoretically, you'll swap out that job, so you use different parts of your body. They also use a product called hexane to clean glass. It dries faster than alcohol, and it's a neurotoxin, so you see a lot of people that have the shakes coming out of these plants. He ends up getting into these factories, posing as an American businessman, and presents himself as somebody who wants to buy their products so he can get the access to the line, so he can see what it's like. And in his mind, he's thinking of the Japanese manufacturer with all the robots and all the mechanical, electric arms. But what he finds is that everything is made by hand in these plants, because Chinese labor is cheaper than machines, and it's unending. There's an endless supply of it. He ends up seeing that it's quiet, Chinese work hour is 60 minutes. That means you work for 60 minutes. There is no break. And during the holiday season, when there's a big rush for that iPad that's coming out, they'll extend the working hours to 16 hours plus. And they actually have little tiny bunks that they'll store the people in so they can get a little bit of rest and come right back to work. A number of people have actually died after 36-hour shifts. It sounds crazy, but that's what they say. Because Mr. Daisy wasn't a journalist, This American Life fact-checked him to see what was true and what wasn't. This monologue was over 60 minutes long. It was cut down for This American Life, so I can only fit so much in. But they found that many of the things he found were in fact true. The only thing that they had an issue with was the fact that underage workers aren't as prevalent as they seem to be. However, Apple did publish a report on child labor, and then in the year Mr. Daisy went to China, they found 91 underage workers in factories. So that is a significant amount, but not considering the population, and the people will use fake IDs and things like that. So it was present. Apple reported that only 32% of the factories they work with follow their guidelines for working hours as well. Hexane is now prohibited by Apple in manufacturing all their products, and This American Life invited them to come on the program and said they declined, but said they're an open company, everything's in their reports, and but they won't list the factories with the infractions. So they are working on it. They're not quite there, but at least they're trying. Thank you.
Nice work.